You have probably seen this little yellow flower 100 times, and walked straight past it. But what if one of the most ordinary plants in your yard has been used as food and traditional medicine for centuries? Today we are looking at dandelion, not as a miracle cure, but as a fascinating plant with an unusual history, edible parts, traditional uses, and a surprisingly complicated relationship with modern science. Stay until the end and you will know how to recognize dandelion, which parts people traditionally use, what research actually tells us, how it can be used simply as food, how to grow it, and most importantly, when you should leave it alone. Dandelion belongs to the genus Taraxacum. The common species discussed in herbal references is Taraxacum officinale, although the dandelion group is botanically more complicated than a single neat species. The plant is easy to recognize when you know what to look for: a low rosette of jagged leaves, a hollow flower stalk, a bright yellow flower head, and later, the familiar round globe of seeds. The leaves grow from the ground rather than from a woody stem. They can look dramatically different depending on the plant's age and growing conditions, so one feature alone should never be your only identification clue. The flower is not one single petal. What looks like one yellow flower is actually a head made of many tiny individual florets packed together. And then comes the transformation children love. The yellow flower disappears, and a sphere of delicate parachutes appears in its place. Each tiny seed carries a feathery structure called a pappus. It acts like a miniature parachute, allowing the wind to carry the seed away from its parent plant. That is one reason dandelion seems to appear everywhere. A plant that produces lightweight wind-dispersed seeds can colonize lawns, roadsides, cracks, gardens, and disturbed soil with remarkable efficiency. But there is another reason gardeners notice dandelion. The plant is not just a flower sitting on the surface. It develops a long taproot beneath the soil. That root stores energy and helps the plant survive conditions that would defeat many shallow-rooted plants. Cut the top, and the root may still have enough life to produce new growth. This resilience is part of why dandelion became a familiar companion of human settlements. People did not have to cultivate it carefully before discovering that it could be gathered and eaten. Dandelion has a long history as a food plant. The young leaves can be eaten, the flowers have culinary uses, and the roots have been prepared in different ways. Young leaves are usually less bitter than older leaves. If you are using them as food, tender leaves are often the more approachable starting point. A simple way to try them is to add a small amount of washed young leaves to a salad with milder greens, lemon, olive oil, and other ingredients you already enjoy. Their bitterness is not necessarily a defect. Bitter greens have a long culinary tradition, and pairing them with acidity, fat, or sweeter ingredients can make the flavor more balanced. The flowers can also be used in food, although the familiar flower head should be properly identified and gathered from a clean location. And that brings us to an important point: a plant being edible does not mean every plant that looks similar is safe. Correct identification comes before tasting. Wild plants gathered beside busy roads, industrial areas, sprayed lawns, or places treated with unknown chemicals are poor choices for the kitchen. Traditional herbal medicine gives dandelion an even bigger story. Different preparations of the leaf and root have been used for digestive and urinary complaints and as what herbal traditions describe as a diuretic. But traditional use is not the same as clinical proof. A claim can survive in herbal tradition for generations while modern researchers still have insufficient evidence to know how large or reliable the effect really is. Dandelion has been studied for many biological effects in laboratory and animal research. Those findings can be interesting, but a result in a test tube or an animal does not automatically become a benefit in an older adult. This distinction matters especially when a video about a common herb begins using words like detox, cleanse, cure, or reverse. Those words can make a plant sound far more certain than the evidence actually is. There is no good reason to turn dandelion into a miracle cure. Its real story is already interesting enough. One area of interest is digestion. Traditional herbal references have used dandelion preparations for mild digestive complaints, but evidence from high-quality human trials remains limited. Another traditional idea is increased urine production. That is why dandelion sometimes appears in herbal products marketed for water balance. But increased urination is not automatically a health benefit. If someone is dehydrated, taking certain medicines, or managing a medical condition, changing fluid balance without professional advice can be a bad idea. Dandelion leaves and roots contain vitamins, minerals, fiber, and many plant compounds. That makes the plant nutritionally interesting even before we start talking about herbal medicine. Still, eating a leafy green is not the same as taking a concentrated extract. The chemical exposure can be very different. This is one of the most important lessons when discussing herbs. The same plant can exist as food, tea, tincture, extract, capsule, or concentrated oil, and those are not interchangeable. If you simply want to enjoy dandelion as food, culinary use is a very different question from taking a medicinal supplement every day. For people who take prescription medicines, especially medicines affecting fluid balance, blood pressure, blood sugar, or the liver and kidneys, it is sensible to show the exact herbal product to a pharmacist or doctor before regular medicinal use. People with allergies to plants in the daisy family may also need to be cautious. A natural product can still trigger an allergic reaction. If you develop swelling, breathing trouble, widespread rash, or another serious unexpected reaction after using an herbal product, seek urgent medical care rather than trying another home remedy. Now let's talk about the part many people enjoy most, growing it. Dandelion is not a delicate greenhouse flower. It is remarkably adaptable. Choose a sunny location with reasonably well-drained soil. Dandelion can tolerate a range of conditions, but compacted, waterlogged soil is not ideal. If you want a reliable supply of young leaves, growing dandelion in a dedicated container can make harvesting easier and prevent it from spreading into every corner of the garden. Sow seeds shallowly and keep the growing medium lightly moist while they establish. Once the plants are growing strongly, they become much more tolerant of ordinary garden conditions. Do not bury the seeds deeply. Their small size means they need access to light and moisture near the surface. Harvest young leaves before the plant becomes heavily bitter if you prefer a milder flavor. Regular small harvests can also encourage fresh growth. If you want the root, remember that digging a mature taproot is much more disruptive than picking a few leaves. For home gardening, it may be easier to grow a small dedicated patch rather than digging wild plants. And there is a wonderful ecological side to this plant. Dandelion flowers can provide nectar and pollen for a variety of insects, particularly early in the season when fewer flowers may be available. So before reaching for weed killer, it is worth asking whether every dandelion really needs to disappear. Of course, a lawn enthusiast may have a different answer. That is the beauty of dandelion. One person sees a weed, another sees a salad ingredient, a flower, a research subject, or a plant with a remarkable survival strategy. What should you actually remember from this video? First, identify the plant correctly. Second, distinguish ordinary food from concentrated herbal products. Third, treat traditional claims as history, not automatic proof. And fourth, if you have a medical condition or take regular medication, do not assume that natural means interaction-free. A quick conversation with a pharmacist can prevent a lot of unnecessary guesswork. Dandelion is not a secret cure hiding in your lawn. It is something more interesting, a plant that feeds people, supports insects, survives harsh conditions, and has inspired traditional medicine for generations. Its strongest story may not be about curing anything at all. It may be about resilience, and how easily we overlook useful things simply because they are familiar. If you already have dandelions growing nearby, take a closer look tomorrow. Notice the leaf rosette. Watch the flower open. Then watch the seed globe appear almost as if the plant changed overnight. And remember, curiosity is the safest first step with any medicinal plant. Learn the name. Learn the plant. Learn the evidence. Then decide what, if anything, belongs in your garden or kitchen. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Plant Lore After 60. We will keep looking at familiar plants and separating the fascinating truth from the claims that simply sound too good to be